We're going to talk about user-centered design this morning. So what is this all about? Or what are the objectives that we hope to achieve at the end of this? We want to be able to explain the concept. So when somebody says user-centered design, what is it? What is your understanding of it? And then there are some steps that we take in the user-centered design process. We're going to begin looking at some of those steps. But the rest of the course is about working on those steps to finally achieve your final product. And so we'll introduce some of those steps. We can't cover everything anyway, but we'll do it as much as we can. So when we say user-centered design, we are talking about something that we do that puts the user at the center. So putting the user at the center means everything revolves around the final user of your system. So when you are designing, you're not designing a thing to please yourself. So sometimes we can look at the thing and say, oh, this is nice. It's not about you, the person designing. It's about the person who is going to use it. But there's no point creating something that will not be used or that people will not like to use. Sometimes people buy certain things and they return them. They return them because they are not satisfying them. And what we are saying is that if during the process of designing those things, you had involved the user or the end user, it's possible that by the time you come up with the final product, it will not be totally rejected. Of course, there's nothing that is 100% accepted everywhere. I mean, you don't, even though most of the times, majority of the people will like something. You can buy the latest iPhone today. I don't even know where we are now, but and you can give it to somebody and the person said, I don't like it. You might think this is the latest, the nicest, whatever, phone. And so you give it as a gift to somebody. But there was a video like that of a spoiled, I would call her a spoiled child. I think this girl was celebrating her 18th birthday or something. And then the father bought her a brand new car. But the color was red. So when they thought they were going to excite the girl, they closed, put something over her eyes, brought her out, and then removed the thing, thinking that she will now be very excited that she has got a new car and all that. The girl rather started insulting and making noise that she doesn't like a red car, and all that. So well, that's a very spoiled child anyway, because I don't see which 18-year-old girl will get a car and then you say because the color is red, you don't like it, and you start, insulting people here and there and so on. But that's all what user-centered design is all about. If they had even just asked the lady, maybe you don't even need to ask her directly. It's just you can find a way of getting to know what her favorite color is, before you go and buy the car. But they didn't do that. So we realized that, they spent money, bought the car. And of course, I'm sure they had to take the car back and get another one. But that's an extreme case. What we are talking about is we want to do things that put the user at the center. And so when we hear the term user-centered design, it's a term coined by some people in the US, University of California, and it's used to describe processes in which end users influence how the design takes shape. So you don't sit down and then just create your own thing. At the end of the day, you just bring it out, And again, when we look at the tech world, that is how, these computers, what we know as Windows these days, graphical user interfaces. The company that actually started working on graphical user interfaces was not Windows or Apple. There was another company called Xerox. But they were trying to make it perfect. They were trying to make sure that And so they were sitting down by themselves, trying to see how best they can make it very nice, but very nice to just nice to only themselves. But then Apple and Co said, no, let's put it out there. So they started, sending. So they put it out. The users, the very first, once they put out Apple, what Mac 1 or something, it was so clumsy, very, slow, very difficult to respond. But they still put it out there. But when the users used it and then gave them feedback, so users were telling them, no, if you make it like this, it will be fine. If you do this, so they took all that feedback, went back, and then improved it a bit. And so year in, year out, it started improving little by little. And now this is where we are. And you can see anytime you go for the next version, so Samsung Galaxy what 1 or Galaxy 2, I don't know where we are now, but you always see that the latest one always looks nicer. Sometimes it can just be the form, the appearance. And what it can do is mostly not that much higher than the previous one. So if you are using Galaxy 5 now, and then Galaxy 6 comes out, it's only possible, it's possible that maybe the difference between Galaxy 5 and 6 is just the appearance. So Galaxy 6 looks nicer, very sleek and all that. But when you come to look at the function, in fact, what do most of us use phones for anyway? Calls and then WhatsApp or messaging, that's all. And maybe taking pictures, uploading to social media and other things. In most cases, the phones we carry around, we don't even use more than 10% of what they can actually do, because the phones can do a lot. But the companies find ways of making us throw away old ones and buy the latest ones, because they also have to be in business and other things. So they take feedback from users, do the things nicer, making them looking nicer and so on and so on. And people keep buying them. But Apple, anytime Apple is coming out with a new version of iPhone, people even start buying it before it comes out. But people start paying pre-order. So you pay. So things like that is because they think that the newer one is going to give them more pleasant experience. So we're talking about what we call user experience here. So anytime you come across user-centered design, we just have the user at the center. So what it means is that any step you take, you need to involve the user. Now the user here doesn't necessarily mean just one person or one group of people. No, it can be, you can do surveys. You can even observe people. Just observe people using a system. It might not even be yours, but it can be something that is like how some people do markets research and other things. You want to come up with something, and so you go out there and just observe and see what people are buying. In that area that you want to come up with, and then based on that information, you can begin to start revising some of the things you are doing. If you just sit down in your room and you finally come out with something, chances are that you are not likely to succeed. And that's why user-centered design comes in. So we say that it's a framework of processes. So in this case, user-centered design goes beyond just interfaces, applications. But because we are in IT or software, what is happening is that when we talk about user-centered design, it mostly has to do with computer applications, but it covers everything. Whether you are designing furniture, you are designing a microwave or whatever, all those things, can be taken into consideration, all those processes. So you look at usability goals, user characteristics, and so that's what we're saying: the environment, the tasks and the workflow, the service or processes, and so on. So a whole lot of things that you give attention to at each stage, the user is involved. So first of all, when we talk about usability goals, what do you want to achieve with your application or your site. Now you can decide that, okay, as for this site, this is what I want. In fact, there's a website. It used to be, I'm sure some of you have even accessed it before. If you go to Craigslist, okay. Yeah, so there are a whole lot of sites now. All right, so let's see. Let's see how. Yeah, so this is how the site is. So Craigslist. Okay, now we even have a Ghana version. Okay, you see that there's nothing. There's no picture, no video or anything flashing here and there. So what this site is focusing on is not the appearance per se. It's not looking to design the interface to look nice. No, it simply links, and that is it. But it's a very popular site because of its function, what it is able to do. So if I'm looking for housing, apartments and housing, I click on this. It's just like, it offers a platform, an e-commerce. In fact, it's one of the oldest, more or less. It is both e-commerce in the sense that you can sell your things, and then it's also auction and all those other things. So what am I searching for? So there isn't much on the Ghana site. So, but you can always go to any of these Africa. Okay, Johannesburg, worldwide, X list. I can't even get anyway. So you realize that people patronize this site not because it is nice, but because you can come in here and then upload your items for people to buy, or also search and buy items. And it's not only buying, there are services, on the French side. So this one is giving us French, community, the housing, jobs, for sale, even discussion forums. You can have join a forum that, that people discuss on certain things. You can have things on, I don't know, the software design here, but mostly people just look at these social things, beauty, bikes, jokes, and so on. So it's a whole lot of things. So, and this site used to be very, very popular. I suspect it's still, but because what's happening is that it's not going to please you with any nice design. But at least when you open it, you can easily find what you want to find. Because here it has already categorized the various things. So if you're looking for a job in accounting and finance, okay, see, I just click on it, and then probably if they have advertised, okay, right now it says nothing. So some places, even on the French side of it. Anyway, so what this site is doing is that it's simply giving you, is making what we call usability goals. So you easily access whatever you want to access. And so they focus on getting the user to achieve what they have come to do. Some sites, if it were a fashion site, for example, you realize that, if you go to any fashion websites, what are you doing? You are going to be looking at maybe the dresses and all those things. Sometimes people just look at them and then they don't even go ahead to buy, because you just look at it so that you can have ideas, especially if you're in the fashion industry. So you open any, I don't know, fashion, let me see whether there's any fashion websites. That is this fashion, oh, these are videos. Okay, what is this, Vogue. Okay, so you open any of these and you can see, I'm trying to see what I can get, it's still the same thing. Okay, so Vogue is one of the fashion areas. It's slow to load anyway. But what you'll be seeing, yeah. So these are the things that, so people come onto this site, they don't even go further to click on anything. They just look at the designs people are wearing, and then they can also go to try to also do those designs or copy those things. So this site also has its, users, and the goals of those users. And so we realize that there's complete difference between this and then the Craigslist site. And all depends on what the goal of the user is. And that's what we call usability goals. So when you are going to design something, what is the goal? What do you want them to be able to do? If you are going to sell shoes, then you make sure that you put things in such a way that people can buy the shoes. It's not a matter of if you want to also display shoes for people to see before they buy, then there's another way you can do the design and all that. So all that is what we call usability goals. But you also need to look at what we call the user characteristics. What do the users want? They typically want to see, or how are they? Do they have the ability? Do they have the internet? Do they have all those things? Do they even have computers to access your site and so on? So all these are things we need to look at. Environment comes in. Environment also has to do with where the people are located. What are the things? Some things can offend some people. I think I've already mentioned that. So some companies, for example, have made adverts, which are successful in maybe Britain. Then they go and try to play the same advert in India. And then there's a backlash because what's happening is that cultures are different. So you can do one thing and expect everybody to accept it. So you need to look at all these. And then when we talk of workflow, I mean, what should be the processes if somebody wants to achieve something on your site? What should you do? Or what should you put in there? And so on. So these are all the things that you do. And then with all this, we put the user at the center. And that's why we call this user-centered design. So if you gather data from users and incorporate your findings into product design, you are more likely to create products that people will like. And that's what we've been saying. So if you look at what users want and you try to respond to that, then most likely you are going to succeed. Examples of people who did some things without considering the user. Somebody sat down and decided to create a chair like this, expecting who to sit on it, because I don't know, somebody designed a spoon, like this, and this is also a pan. I mean, if you imagine you're going to use this to cook, how does it work? And then this, of course, the watering can, that doesn't make sense because so you can design products that maybe you think are nice or they are funny or whatever, but they are of totally no use to anybody because nobody is going to buy these things. If you consider the user and what the user will be doing with it, you wouldn't design things like that. And then I also have the link on the examples of the sites, some of the sites that we looked at, we're trying to look at last week. Where is it? Yeah, 10 West design websites. Sometimes you learn to do certain things by looking at the bad way people do it, so that you avoid those kind of mistakes. So there are websites here. Okay, this is the one I showed last week, which is just bad. There's one, yeah, Yale School of Art, and this is also just bad because let me see, what is the I don't even need to open it, but so you can see that colors are just horrible, and then you have some texts. That is this is it's a complete turn off because the way it is, it's not organized in any proper way. This another one which is not too bad, but the contrast. There's some people who don't see colors very well. Say they are colorblind. And so if you are doing things that are not contrasting, say blue on blue background, then it's most likely they are not going to be able to even see it to start with. The same thing with these examples, a yellow on a blue background. People will not see it. Not people, most people will not even look at it more than once. So these are examples of things that people can do when they don't consider user-centered design, or they don't try to consider the user before they come up with their designs. So there are some few principles that we can apply, when we are doing a design. First of all, users are involved in the process from the very beginning. Design decisions are evaluated based on how they work for end users. So right from the beginning, when you are trying to come up with something, you have to think of the user. When website design started, people used to just sit down in their rooms and create their own websites, and then they launch it, and that ends it. By then, well, websites were not too many, and so most users didn't have a choice. So you went to Yahoo, or by then even Google wasn't there. Ghana, here we have Ghana Web. Ghana Web was the first site that was giving news, and so they could do whatever they want, and then users, well, if you click on it, fine. If you don't, no problem. But now there's so much competition out there that don't try to make something attractive and working for users. They will simply click back. And in fact, most of the research that is being done, we are told that, so let me open. We are told that on a browser like this, the back button, that is clicking back, going back to where you came from, is the most popular button that is clicked on all websites. So you just open a site. What it means is that you go somewhere, and then people don't even spend time. Once it appears and they see what it is, they just click back. So the back button is always the most, and that tells you that people don't spend too much time look at your interface. If it's not going to satisfy whatever they came to do, then you're just wasting your time, or they are not going to waste their time on your interface. So the user-centered design principles is saying that you should always, what is it clicking on here? You should always try to involve the user. Next, yeah, right from the very beginning, and then it also helps you to clarify a whole lot of requirements. So you want to align your requirements, your business requirements with the user's needs. For your business requirements, what is your, normally say, business model? Especially, yeah. So what do you want to actually achieve? And if it involves people using your products, and in most cases, when we talk of business, we are looking at how we can get people to patronize products or services or whatever that we are providing. And so you have your goals as a business, but it should align with the needs of the user. So it means you should always look, and that's what entrepreneurs do, or entrepreneurship is about. You look at the environment, you look at the situation, look at what is happening in society generally, and then you look for some opportunities in there, and then you try to address those opportunities, because you know that if you do that, there is most likely the users or the people who will be patronizing your products or services. Of course, maybe they'll be happy, especially if it was not there to start with before you started it. And so people, when the tech companies started coming out with mobile money, for example, it was because they realized the technology is there for them to be able to do that. But more importantly, people were still going to banks to queue. You go and queue, and then there's a whole lot of time wasted and all that. And so let's do something that can facilitate transactions without people necessarily having to go to banks and so on. And so when it comes out, you realize that a lot of people patronize it. And once they are doing that, then there's competition, because there's not only one person who is doing it. And so you need to keep doing things that will make it easier and easier for the users, so that they will keep coming back, or they will keep using your system. And you can only achieve that by continuously looking at users, or asking them questions, or getting feedback, and then using that to sort of revise or review whatever you are producing. So feedback loop or user feedback is always very critical. So whatever you do, so like the examples we showed, if Gap had, involved users at the beginning of the decision to change their logo, they wouldn't have done it, and they wouldn't have wasted so much money. You can't wait until you finish and then, you now go back to, so you need to be able to get the feedback from users, and then that will help you to improve your design. And we say it's iterative. An iterative process is more like you are going in cycles or a spiral. But those, since you're in computer, I'm sure you come to talk of, if you haven't done that already, agile design and so on. There's something called waterfall and the agile. You by all means come across it if you have not done it already. So, and we say it's iterative because you do one thing, you go out there, test it, get feedback, come back, improve on it, and then you move on to the next and so on. So you keep going back and forth until the final thing is done. And so we say it's an iterative process, and most of the times involving the user. And so that's a typical process. So before you, and this from the business perspective, before you even come up with something, first of all, you do your research, just like I talked about market research and all those things. Sometimes the opportunities, you can just see it without necessarily doing any research. Maybe you look at it's like how some people started this sachet water thing. Sachet water, they started calling it pure water and all that. Before that, before those things came, they used to fetch water or put get ice water, yeah, and then get these small rubber bags and then pour the water inside and tie it, and then they will be selling it on the street like that. And most of the times it was really not hygienic at all because we didn't know where the water was coming from. And even the people who were pouring so sometimes you can buy the thing and look at it and you can just see that there's a whole lot of dirt or particles in it. So somebody said, oh, no, why don't we do it a better way, mechanize it or mechanize it, use some more decent filtration processes, and then you bag the water that we see these days. And so when they started calling it pure water, as if it was supposed to be cleaner than what people were buying. And so you saw an opportunity, and then you now exploit the opportunity, and then you interact with customers because they realize that some people are complaining. Sometimes you can just buy, people will buy it, you sit in the car, and then people, they come around, you buy it, and when you look at it, you just throw it away because you realize that it's just dirty. And so by observing that, people said, oh no, why don't we do the same thing, but package it nicely and make it pure water or cleaner water rather than, and so the whole concept of pure water came out. And now other people started also joining, so now it's all over. So sometimes now, even before you buy, you look at the way it's branded or whatever. So those are so once you do your research or you observe and then you come up with something, then you begin the design process. So the concept, the design, and then the build. So the pure water sachet, for example, who told them that they should do it at that size? Why not smaller or bigger? Why that particular size? It's because they did some research and then they realized that mostly maybe that would be the best way to satisfy customers and also be able to make profits and so on. And then you do your design. And then so each stage, if it comes back to software applications, then when you start your concept, how should the interface look like? You let people take a look at it, give you feedback. Then the colors, like I even started talking about the logo. How should your logo look like? Some logos have meaning, others don't. And so when we start working on our projects, the first thing we'll do is to come up with your imaginary company or organization that you want to design. And then probably might already have an existing organization or company. That's fine. But then what will be expected to do is to come up with a logo. And there are websites that can help you to design, this opinion interest. Websites that can help you to design a logo. They'll give you ideas as to what to do, but you don't have to copy somebody's design anyway. So there are some logos, when you look at them, they carry meaning. Others don't really mean anything, or others have, so if you see something like, which one is this? This one says people care. Okay. Probably it might mean something, but there are others that are just abstract things. But it's all up to you, the person designing. But your logo should be appealing to your final users or your users. We don't want a logo that will insult people, because somebody can look at your logo and say, it looks like this is an insult, or this is, so they wouldn't, because people interpret things differently. So you might be looking at it one way, not knowing that others are seeing it another way. And so when we come to start our designs, we will be seeing, or we're coming across, why am I coming back to this? Okay, so we say iterative. Yeah, so the aim is to produce what we call highly usable and accessible systems, aiming for user satisfaction whilst averting negative effects on health, safety, performance, and so on. So we don't just design for usability only, but we should look at what we call accessibility of the systems. So if you are designing something for the entire world, you always try to make sure that you don't leave out a certain section of the population, like people who are, like I said, colorblind, or people who cannot read, especially very fine text. So if you write very tiny characters, there's a whole lot of people who cannot use your site or your application. And so you need to bear that in mind. Or when they use, or when they continue looking at it, it's going to hurt them in a way, because either you are flashing lights or you are doing things, and that affects their health. So you need to bear all those things in mind. So research has established that making users central part. Okay, so we talked about this over and over again. So it leads to more effective, efficient, and safer products. So making users a center piece of your design process will always help a whole lot to save you money, to make the users happy, and eventually, of course, everybody will be happy. But there's also something called user experience, and this is an aspect of the user-centered design. So the user experience has to do with how users actually interact with your product or your application, and that is the experience. So sometimes you might design something that is nice, but then the user probably experiences it in another way, or gets to, I think there's a graphic here. Yeah, so here, look at this picture we have here. Somebody has sat down to design a lawn, nicely with grass, and I'm sure we see this everywhere. So we put a pavement, for people to walk, and then we put, planted trees and grasses nicely. So this is a nice design. But what are the users doing? So you didn't take the user experience into consideration, because the user wants the shortest way to go from A to B. And now you have asked the person to go all this way around when there's a short way to go there. So the user will simply, use a shortcut and not be looking at how nice your design is. And so experience has to do with how users interact with your product. So you will design things and say, oh, maybe the user will click on this and click on that and so on. But then probably the user only goes to search, and just click on search. And then if you search and then you didn't do your search system very well, and maybe nothing pops up or the wrong thing comes out, of course, then the user has a different experience from what you are thinking or what you were anticipating. And so, you need to bear that in mind, that what you are designing and the way you are looking at it is not necessarily how your users will use it, unless you engage the users in the process. And so, and that's why sometimes some products fail. They fail because from the beginning, they didn't take users into consideration. People have launched things, and eventually they have to withdraw them because people are using it in a different way. Or sometimes some people can even find a different use for your product than what you were even thinking from the beginning. And that shouldn't be the case, because user experience is expressions. So okay. All right. So when we talk of user experience, which is an aspect of user-centered design, we're saying that it focuses on having a deep understanding of users, what they need, what they value, their abilities, and all that. So that contributes to what we call the user experience. So you can design is a broader thing, making the thing nice, the interface nice, and also making sure that it's usable so that it satisfies the user. But experience is what the user actually goes through when they start using your system. And so you can make it nice, but if the user is going to use it in another way, then probably they will not achieve what you set them to achieve. Now, so if for this graphic, for example, if somebody had put a fence, at the top there to prevent people from going through, I'm sure we've seen examples like that. Sometimes other people will break down the fence. Yeah, maybe they'll step on it, and then continue using it that way. So what you are doing is you are trying to force them to use your system one way, but their experience is different. They want the easiest and maybe the safest and the fastest way to do things. And so user experience, very critical. So you need to involve users before you can get things to work. Of course, if in creating this thing, before planting their grass and doing all that, if they had come to observe, to see how the users are working on the lawn, or even they had just done the first part of it, and then observe the users, they would have realized that no, it's better to put the pavement across that way than to try to make it look nice. So you make the entire lawn look very nice, but then the users have destroyed it because that is totally different from what they are expecting. So there's something called the user experience honeycomb. So there's this 7 main things that we look at when we talk of user experience. And of course, it's part of the design process. So before you get going, you need to ask yourself, is your system usable? So usable in the sense that, does it really help the user to achieve what they want to achieve? So is it useful? So is it of any purpose at all? Is it of any value? Why would somebody come to your website? If you go to Uber website, it's very useful because you are going to use it to book a car, but there are other websites that are totally useless. You don't get anything from it because you visit and then you don't know. Maybe there's news. Of course, that's useful. You can read the news. Others, there's video for entertainment and so on. But sometimes there are others that are totally not useful at all. Is it desirable? Desirable, that's the appearance. Does it look nice? Is it something that you would want to look at? And so that's desirable. Valuable in the sense that, value for money. Is it worth investing your time and your money on this site? That is, if I go in there and I want to buy something, is it giving me any value at all? Or the time I'm spending on it, am I really benefiting? Findable means the things that you put on the application, can the users easily find them? So if you say buy shoes, or I mean, I'm selling shoes on my website, if somebody comes to look for, I think I use sports shoes as an example, will the person easily find them and then go ahead to purchase them? So findable, accessible here. Now we are also including people who have some disabilities, like we said. If you want it to be accessible to almost the entire population, what can you do? And there are some websites these days that are catering for blind people, because websites, we only have an interface that people are looking at. But how will a blind person also experience our website? So some people have taken it upon themselves to design sites that are accessible to blind people. But at our level, we can't do all those. What we have to do is to try to make sure that people with minor disabilities like visual issues, you don't see very well, or you are colorblind and so on, you try to make sure that it satisfies them. And so that's why we normally talk of high contrast. Black text, white background has a lot of contrast. It's easy to see. But if you do green text on blue background, of course, you are going to create problems for so many other people. And credible here has to do with, of course, the information or what you have on the site. Is it really credible? There are so many websites that are not credible at all, especially these news. We hear of fake news every day. Some people go to websites and access information without checking to see where this information is coming on is actually coming from a credible source, especially things that have to do with health and other things. You just go onto a site and you see somebody mixing things to drink, and telling you that, oh, when you do this, it will increase or it will decrease your blood, a whole lot of things. And then you also just get up and start doing the same thing. And you ask, oh, I saw it on a website. Which website? You go in there and you see that when you are looking for the credibility of that information, it's lacking. What is that person, a trained person, or what experience or whatever do they have? So if you're not careful, you can access information and it is not credible. So when you're designing websites and you're putting up information, also make sure that the information you are putting out there is something that is credible, or that you can defend. That's what I'm putting there is true or is credible. So when you satisfy all these, then of course your user will have a very pleasant experience or a high experience. Yeah, Obed's hand is up.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, please, what's the difference between the useful and then the usable?
Oh, okay. 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 So let me see what I can get a simple example to see. Now, when we say something is useful, okay, let's take a pen. I've got some number of pens. If you want to say a pen is useful, what do you think it can do? It should be able to write, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
In that case, it's useful. Yeah. But there are some pens, maybe it's designed in such a way that even though it can write, but when you want to hold it to write, you can't use it. Maybe it's too big or it's clumsy, you hold it, or it's very small, you want to hold it, you see that it doesn't fit very well in your fingers. So even though it's useful, it can write, it's not really usable, or you don't enjoy using it. So usability has to do with you using the tool, people call it a tool, how best it makes you or it helps you to achieve what you want to achieve. But useful is actually whether it is serving its purpose. So there are certain things that are useless because what is happening is that they don't help you achieve anything, but they might be usable. Let's see, what example will be, you can find, maybe I can't find an example off my head, but let's see, maybe some, even websites, you can take a website or a book, you take a book and then probably as a book, okay, that one is simple, but maybe let's just say a website or any other device that you are looking at, maybe the pen example I was giving, you know, once you can use it any way you want, then we say it's usable. You know, there's maybe if you have a hammer to hit a nail, for example, you know, and it's very heavy and a child cannot lift it. As far as the child is concerned, the hammer is not usable, but the hammer is still useful. You know, if you can lift it and hit the nail, no, it's useful, but it's not usable because it's too heavy. And so the two normally go together. But most of the time, or no, sometimes you have situations where you can have something that is useful but not usable, or other things that are usable. I mean, you can work with it, you can play with it, use it any way you want, but it doesn't achieve any purpose at all. You know, I can't think of an example right away, but you know, so there are things like that. Yeah, the Benedictus and is up.
Yeah,
You need,
it's a,
yes.
and the findable and the accessible, are they not the same?
No. Accessible has to do with accessible. And when I talk of people who have some deficiencies, they should all be able to access it. You know, so now the blind is the extreme, but you know, if you put something that it can be findable in the sense that, you know, findable simply means that it's there and you can locate it. And so, you know, you want to put shoes or you want to sell shoes, and so people can easily find it. But when you find it and then you click and it doesn't respond, then it's not accessible. So you can find something, but then you can't access it. You know, it's like if I ask you, if I tell you to I buy, no, you go and buy a new phone. You know, of course, it's there. You turn it on. You can find some applications and all those things. But now you want to make a call, and you can't call. So, or you want to use other features, and you can't. Then in that case, we say you can't access some of the resources, even though you can find them. So sometimes there can be an overlap in some of these things, but they mean different things actually. So you can find something that is useful, but you cannot use it. You can find something that is findable, so you can easily find it, but it's not accessible. You can't access it, especially for people with deficiencies. And so if you say, you know, click on this so that you can watch a video, for example, and then you click, in that case, you can find it, but then you click on it and the video, maybe no sound is coming, or the sound, if no sound is coming and you cannot hear, then that is not a video actually. That is not accessible, or it's so faint that people who are hearing problems cannot hear, then it's not accessible. So those are some of the things. Yeah, Alex's hand is up.
Sir.
Yes.
So with the useful and the usable example you gave,
yeah.
Can we say like when you use a pen, for example, so writing with a pen, it's usable, but if the ink is not, if you're writing and the ink is not coming, then it is useless.
Yeah,
but once you're able to achieve your writing or what you need to write, it becomes useful.
Useful, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's precisely what I was trying to. Yeah, you've added a bit more to it, you know. So you can take the pen, very nice looking, you know, you can very attractive. You can hold it, you know, and you can write the way you want. That's usable. But when you start writing and the ink runs out or the ink doesn't come, then it is pretty much useless now. Because what's the use of a pen? A pen is supposed to let you write. And so if you can't write, then it's useless, no matter how usable it is. You know, and then of course it varies with context and, you know, with the human beings and the different persons and so on. So it doesn't apply across board. That, you know, you can find something not useful, but another person will find it useful. So it goes on and on like that. So like just like the hammer example I gave, you have a hammer which is very useful to hit a nail, but then you give it to a child, and the child very much finds it not usable because he can't lift it. So because you cannot lift it, it's not usable. That doesn't mean it's not useful. It's still useful so long as you can use it. But if you also take a hammer which is made of a balloon, let's say a balloon hammer, you inflate a balloon, it looks like a hammer. Of course, the child can lift it now. It's easily usable, but it cannot hit the nail. So in that case, it becomes useless or it's not useful. So in design or in creative applications, we try to balance all these things. Make sure that, people come to your site, they can use it, and then they can also get what they came to the site for. That's the important thing. Why are you visiting a site? Just like I showed the fashion site. Some people just go there just to look at the pictures. They are not interested in buying anything. It's like window shopping. You go to a shop, and then shoppers, shop owners know that there are people who do window shopping. They just come and look at your things, admire your goods and other things, and they go away. And so you try to display things and do things to look attractive. They'll come and look at it. Maybe one day when they have money, they will come and buy. But you don't just put your items because you are selling, you pack all the items in a warehouse. And then when somebody comes, you can find it for them. So in that case, it might be useful, but of course, it's not usable to the final user or the user. So these are the various things you should be looking at when we are trying to take into consideration user experience, because the user experiences all this. And the way your interface looks like, takes care of some of these things like desirable and findable and those things. Because when I open if you open anything for the first time and it looks nice, or maybe a car that you buy, it's very nice, of course, you have something that is desirable. You would want to use it and so on. But then if you enter and then you start and it doesn't start, then as a car, it is totally useless because it can't move you from A to B, even though you can drive, in which case the car is usable, but it's not useful because it can't move you. So you can have several examples of these things. Okay, so we are winding down with this presentation. So we're saying that, of course, user-centered design can actually save you time and help you avoid costly mistakes. We've already talked about that. It doesn't sort of distract you from achieving what you set out to achieve. It only makes sure that you focus on the right things. Sometimes we add things that are pretty much useless to users. You go onto a website and there are a whole lot of other things that are added, especially those that are advertising, things. Even these days, we have the browsers that are suppressing pop-ups, but there used to be a time when you go onto one site, then suddenly so many other websites will be popping up. They are not helping you in any way, but they are just distracting you. And then people thought that was nice because when it's flashing and it pops up and so on, they didn't know it was annoying users. So you should set out to meet the user's needs and not just trying to make something that probably satisfies you, the person designing. At the end of the day, of course, you are not likely to achieve what you set out to achieve. So sometimes working with users can be a bit difficult, of course, because asking for feedback from users and all that, sometimes some people will give you very bad advice or very bad feedback and so on. But you need to balance all these things because you can't take care of 100% of your users. It's not possible. There's nothing that you can do that will be 100% acceptable by everybody. No matter what it is. Even we as a human being, there's something called a 50-20, let me see if I can Just open something called the 20-50-30 rule. So 20-50, I don't know that I can get 30. Yeah, 20-50-30 rule. Now, what this rule says is that, you know, in most cases, yeah, so something like this. Yeah, okay, so we have, okay, these are talking of savings and other things. Budgeting, oh, these are not in budgeting, but this, I'm looking at accessibility and how about, oh, there's more on budgeting and other things. Anyway, but what the generic rule is that most of the times, even you as a human being, no, there are, you take the entire population of the world, people who know you, you know, there's the general rule that 20% of them probably, you know, will unconditionally like you, you know. So you design a website, it's most likely that 20% of your users will come onto the website no matter what, you know, because they like the website. 50% don't care. You know, they are, what we say, ambivalent. They don't care whether it is nice or not. I mean, if they find it nice, fine. If they don't find it nice, you know, they don't really care. Or as a human being, 50% of the people who know you don't care about it. I mean, if you're at work, for example, you don't come to work for 3-4 days. I mean, they don't ask of you or anything. You know, the people who care for you or who like you are just a minority, 20%. And then in fact, there are 30% who are actually your enemies, or who are actually against you. So whatever you do, no matter what you do, they will never like you. So we have things like that. It's not necessarily just 20, 50, 30, but generally, that's the understanding that you design something, you create something. And that's why I said you can buy a brand new iPhone and give to somebody, and the person will tell you they don't like it. You know, even though you think that everybody should like or should want an iPhone, a brand new one, but there will be somebody out there who will say, no, that's what this one, I don't like it. You know, and so it's always like that. So whenever you do something, bear in mind that you can never get 100% acceptance. And so there's always the people, somebody, if a human being will say haters, you know, no matter what you do, there's those who are unconcerned, or the 50%. Now, if your design is looking nice and is satisfying their needs, then you get the bulk of them to join the 20% who already like your site. And so the more appealing, or the more functionally acceptable your site is, then the more users you will get. You know, but you will never get 100%. There are some people who will still never, you know, visit your site, and that is understandable. That's generally how life is. So you never expect to get 100% acceptability, no matter what you do. So working with users can be difficult at times, but that doesn't necessarily mean that for those who are proving difficult, you probably can ignore them, because they're normally not the majority. But you always try to make sure that you get most of those who don't really care about what you have. You know, you try to bring them over to your side, or to get them to, and that you can achieve that by taking up or taking on their desires and their, you know, wishes and so on. So this, finally, this is the last slide. This is the process of embarking on user-centered design. We can't do all this, you know. So, but generally, there's a plan. So you have to plan what you are setting out to do. Our planning is always the first thing you must do. You must sit down and plan. If you don't plan, they always say that if you don't, but if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. You know, if you don't plan what you're going to do, you realize that you can't just open a laptop and start designing or developing something. You know, you can't do that. You go 3-4 steps and you realize that you have to come back and change something. You know, and in changing that, especially when it comes to programming and other things, if you're not careful, you can change one thing and the whole thing will just mess up. And so you need to go step by step systematically, so that you're building the house. if you look at it that way as building a house. So you need a plan. And then in doing the plan, there are some steps probably you need a team, because in designing applications or interfaces, one person cannot do it. So you need a team. And those teams, you have to have the various experts and so on. Sometimes it might even be necessary to hire somebody. There are some people who are specialists, we call them usability specialists. They will take your system and take it through some processes with users, and they can find some valuable information that will help you to redesign or revise your application. So then you do analysis or analyze. So analysis here has to do with your ability yourself, your technology, your users, and a whole lot of other things. We wouldn't go into all that. And then now you do the design. So the design has to happen when you have got all these things in place. And now you can start creating something on the screen. And then after that, you then test your design. And refine simply means that when you test, you get some bugs here and there, and then you fix those bugs, make sure that it's finally excellent and acceptable. So we'll probably do things like card sorting, develop wireframes, prototype. Yeah, we'll have a prototype. We'll do usability testing. There's a way of doing that. We'll do something like let me see, evaluate, determine set requirements, inventory. Yeah, we'll probably do, these, but some of these not as a group, but maybe as an individual, we'll look at some of these. But generally, your group work is going to involve going through some of these steps. And at the end of the day, we are not going to see what you have designed, even though when you are writing your report, you can put some screenshots there, but it's a report you are going to write. And that report should tell us how you went about the whole process. And so when we get to that point, we'll begin the process. So you start thinking. So by next week, I'll have your groups. Then the first thing you do is to decide on the name of your organization or your company, whatever it is, and then give it a logo or design a logo for it. Then you come and show us your respective logos, and then we'll critique, not criticize. We'll give you feedback on your logo, and then you can if you say, oh, excellent, then you can go ahead with it. If somebody says, oh, maybe can you take a second look at maybe this and this, or what does this mean, and so on. That helps. It doesn't necessarily mean that whatever people say you must implement it. It's just that it's part of the process. You take feedback. So when you're finally writing your final report, you need to indicate that, okay, first part, this was the logo we designed, and then all the users. So it's a class who are going to be your users. All of us we'll be looking at what you are doing. You can say, okay, the user said it was excellent. Okay, so we moved on. We'll do what we call wireframe, and then prototype before we do the final design. So I'll show you some examples later on. So, okay, all right. So let's see. Yeah, okay. So this is the end of the presentation for the day. I think that's taken quite long. Yeah, any question? I can stop the recording now.